I played the Crew 2 again, and this is some gameplay from that. That's right, we're talking about drifting today. Drifting is a huge aspect of the Crew, the last game, and I want to talk a lot about it, just how it's changed and how it's so much better in this game. I mean, you'd obviously expect it to be better, but how better would it be? Let's go into that. So, starting off with the actual physics themselves. So they've jumped and absolutely gone crazy with the physics of this game. In every single different class of the vehicles. I'm not just talking about the planes and the bikes and the boat. I'm talking about drifting, I'm talking about racing. The specific types of class like that have all been fine-tuned and made so much better. But what about drifting? What's different? So everything overall is the weight feels so much better. The weight, you feel the weight of the car much more. In the previous game, the drifting handling was actually based on if you drive to the ice in a race car and drive to the side. That's basically what they used as a base to work for the drifting in the last game. Well, in this game, they've completely remade the physics from the ground up, from scratch, specifically for drifting. Because you remember the last game at launch didn't have drifting. Well, this one is obviously having it as a core component, so they could definitely put more time into that, and well, they definitely very clearly have. And it's not even only that. The RX7 that I was using drifted tremendously. When I'm talking about even in events and competitions, and even when I'm going into free roam and exploring while drifting, which is kind of difficult. You can't really explore and drift at the same time. I mean, it's possible, but you can focusing on one thing more than the other. So you might crash more if you're trying to explore. Anyway, if you are, for example, then go over to the Mustang, you can go over to the Mustang, and the Mustang feels a little bit heavier. There's a difference in each car and how it feels when you drive in that specific class. And even if it's in the exact same class, the cars are going to feel different. Even in the race class, for example, when we first played the game, the Porsche felt a little bit more like planted to the ground. The GTR felt a little bit more light and nimble. Even though the GTR is supposed to be a little bit of a heavier car, it's a very nimble car because of just how it's set up. It's set up differently than the Porsche. The Porsche is like, stick to the ground. I am a track racing monster. Do not mess with me. Anyway, going back to the drifting. So the drifting is, as I said, massively improved overall. It feels much better, which means you can focus less on actually trying to hold a semi-decent drift and more on actually focusing on pushing and making it look amazing, which is kind of the focus you want to do, because really it's not massively difficult to get the original slide going in any vehicle, okay? And that means, again, you can focus more on chaining them together and pushing their skill to kind of match the corner perfectly rather than go off the edge a little bit and hit a tree and mess up. You can still mess up, obviously, don't get me wrong. And again, my absolute favorite thing would be to go somewhere in the wild, just go to the forest somewhere where the mountain roads kind of curve down and just literally hammer them. That's probably my most used thing for this class. I'm not necessarily much of a competitive drifter, but I'm definitely going to try and beat Matthew on some drift events, because in the last game, somehow he ended up coming on the top of me. Like, I don't understand. Like, he's genuinely bad at games, but somehow he can beat me. But maybe this time, now that the physics aren't like as floaty, and maybe I can do it, right? Maybe it's because he's technically bad and the physics were kind of bad, so maybe that's why, right? They match together, but this time the physics are good, and I'm a little bit better than him. So. One thing that was really cool, I didn't really notice this properly until now, and I don't know if any of you guys have really noticed it, but we've only really seen one boat, one plane. Well, actually in the game now there's multiple boats per like boat class, if that makes sense. So there's different classes. There's land, sea, air. That's pretty much the way I'm looking at it, the land, sea, air. And if you go into those specific categories, there's a lot of things for it. For example, in the land, we knew there was race cars, drift cars, bikes, that kind of thing. And then if you go over to the boats, there was like, okay, it's a boat. Like, I don't know boats at all, but obviously if you look into it, there's speed boats, and there's boats that are made for like maneuvering type. There's different types of boat, and we got to try that, and it was awesome, because obviously there's going to be different types of plane as well. And I didn't put two and two together originally, but the amount of like detailing way, if you try a different type of boat, for example, you feel the difference in the boat as well. It's not just the case of a drift car feels different to a race car. the speedboat feels faster than a tugboat. It's not going to feel exactly the same. But they've gone definitely in depth with each individual category, and you can tell as soon as you pick up the controller. And you can see probably from the footage as well, they've definitely fine-tuned it. Now, one thing I'd like to see, not normally I throw in a I'd like to see, but one of the things with the planes is if you press the button, smoke comes out the back and it keeps trailing it. What I would love to see is if you do the exact same thing on a drift car, if you press in the button, instead of having just normal white smoke, it should change to a color that you have selected. That would be awesome. And you could turn it on and off back to normal smoke if you wanted to. Because I'm not necessarily one that likes to do that too often, but I do like to do it every now and again, and that would be a cool little advancement to the game. So there you go, Ivory Tower. Hopefully I just gave you some little tips on what you can do in the future. Small update, very probably very slight change to be able to do that. But there you go, that just... I'm giving you some tips. This is not the only footage of the crew I have. I just really wanted to show you the drifting because the drifting is one of my favorite aspects of the crew. One, when it was added to the game, just free roaming drifting is so much fun. And now that it's actually stable, I cannot wait to see what it plays like in every other vehicle that I want to try once it actually comes out. But we gotta wait till March. If you didn't see the trailer, we've gotta wait till March, which... I mean, I expected, if they say it's 2018, they probably mean early 2018, they probably mean March. It's just the window of opportunity for a game that wants to do well in the start of the year. Anyway, I really want to know how it's going to play, hopefully does, because the last game did, with a wheel. Now, I never tried the drifting properly with a wheel on the last game, but as I said, the physics on that were pretty much just a different version of drifting accidentally on ice. So how is it going to handle with the wheel with the new setup? Is it going to be better? I'd imagine so. Like, and I also that makes me think, because in the last game there was one issue where the monster trucks, for example, if you switched to a monster truck and you had a wheel, you couldn't do the flips and everything like that because you had a wheel. How's that going to work if you have a plane? You can't go up and down properly. How's it going to work if you have a boat? A boat's a little bit easier. A boat you can do, because boats basically have the same wheels anyway, but there's a lot of different types of vehicle in the game, and I'm just wondering how those are going to work with a wheel. It's not a big thing for me if the wheel support isn't there for those vehicles, or it like just locks out when you switch a vehicle. I don't really mind, because I only use the wheel properly when free roaming in the crew, and if I was doing a car race. But some of the races switch mid-race. I don't know if that's just the first race or some of the things actually switch mid-race, but if that does happen in some of the other races, then I'm going to have to maybe I'm going to pause the game and switch my controller. So I'm interested to see how that's going to work. That's one thing I'm thinking, but that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you want to see of the crew too. I'm going to be doing a lot of it over the next few days, so be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.